really.
When will the flights go?
10 to 12 weeks. You'll have seen the Prime Minister's press conference yesterday, where he very clearly set out the timetable and what's going to happen next. We're both impatient. I'm impatient. I've explained this before. We want flights to get off the ground as soon as possible. But there are certain steps that need to happen between now and then, and that's why the 10 to 12 weeks timetable has been so clearly set out by the Prime Minister.
What steps?
The steps are we need to ensure that the caseworkers are properly trained. That's starting now. That's starting this week as soon as the legislation has passed. We need to make sure that the treaty is ratified, that the bill receives royal assent and becomes an act of parliament. Then it's inevitable, I'm afraid, that there are going to be challenges. It's inevitable that people are going to try and throw everything in this at this to try and stop this plan from working. I mean, frankly, we saw last night from the Labour Party and from the Labour Lords, they seem more determined to stop the flights. We're determined to stop the boats. There will be challenges, but we will meet them, we will overcome them, and that's why it's going to take 10 to 12 weeks.
Which airport?
I'm not going to go into operational details. I can completely understand the question, the reason you ask that, and also the interest in that. But as I've said, there are those who are determined to stop this. And if I go into details such as that with you, then that will help those who are wanting to stop this. I want this to succeed. I want this to succeed. I want this to work. And there are those who don't want it to work. The reason I want it to work is because I want to stop the boats crossing the channel. I want to stop the evil criminal gangs. I want to stop the drownings, the fatalities that we've seen in the Channel every single month. 9 fatalities this year, 1 a young girl as young as 7. We must stop the boats. And I'm determined to do everything to ensure that we get the flights off the ground and do just that. And so if I go into details like that with you, those who want to stop it will be emboldened, will be enabled, and will try even harder to stop it. I'm just not going to.
I mean, security around our airports is second to none. So how? I don't get it.
Well, there are those who want to stop this. I mean, that is a fact, and you know that, I know that, and your viewers know that as well. And the more details that I go into, the more that gives them the chance, the opportunity to stop those flights. And that's just not something that I'm willing to do.
So you're not going to tell me which airline either? Is it a commercial airline?
I'm not going to go into those details. You're absolutely right, for the reasons that I've already told you.
OK, but what you're doing so far has not stopped the boats, is it? They're up 24% this year.
That is right. You're right about that. Last year, they were down by 36%. This year, they are up. We've seen an increase in vulnerable Vietnamese migrants being smuggled across by those evil criminal gangs, just as you saw when there was a spike with Albania. The Prime Minister clamped down on this, and I signed an agreement with my Vietnamese counterpart last week. We're looking at exactly why there's been a tenfold increase. We're determined to clamp down on that. But that's why we need this policy to get in place, respectfully. That's why I was standing at the bar of the House of Lords last night at just after midnight. That's why I and my colleagues are determined to get this bill through, because having got the bill through, we can get the flights off the ground, we can get the deterrent effect in place, and that's the final piece of the jigsaw to make sure that we can stop the boats.
There's the rub, the evil criminal gangs. That's what Labour says that they would target.
Well, frankly, what you've heard from Labour is they have said they would do what we're doing already, except they have said they'll scrap this scheme. Even when it's up and running, even when it's working as a deterrent. You've had the clearest of answers that ask the toughest illegal migration legislation that's ever been passed. They would scrap this even when it's working.
Because they'd focus on the gangs instead.
No, they're saying they would do exactly what we're doing already. It's quite interesting. You'll have seen that from the debate last night, the exchange between the two front benches. They're proposing, they have no plan apart from what we're already doing and apart from to scrap exactly this measure, which is the deterrent that's in place. They voted 134 times against our tougher illegal migration legislation. No, because
that's what they say.
Well, because they don't want this scheme to work. They don't want this deterrent to be in place. They don't believe in it. We do. We think that it's necessary. And frankly, I think that the Labour Party are more interested in stopping the planes rather than stopping the boats.
What about the houses that were supposed to be in Kigali ready for people who were being deported from the UK? They've been sold.
Well, I'm afraid there's been a little bit of misreporting about that. And
OK, so clarify it for me, please.
Well, thank you, and that's what I'm doing. There are houses that are there. It's an uncapped scheme. Rwanda's a very welcoming country, and it is there. It is ready to take. It's already housing 135,000 migrants there already. It's an incredibly welcoming country.
Some of those houses have been sold off. Is that not right?
There are houses that are there. already.
Have some of them been sold off?
There are houses that are there that are in place,
Have
ready
some been sold
for.
off or not?
Of course, houses have been sold. That is right, but it's mixed housing. No. It's mixed housing. These aren't ghettos where people are going to be put in Rwanda. It's mixed housing. Part of the policy for Rwanda to welcome refugees. I think what we haven't heard enough
but the Boise
is the
Riverside
welcoming
estate was
country
set
that
up
Rwanda
for
is.
these people that were coming from the UK. It's been delayed so much that as a result, some of those houses have now been sold off to local people.
Well,
is that right or not?
That is right. It was always inevitably going to be that way because it was for mixed housing. It wasn't just for refugee housing, and that's a really important point.
Talk to me about what. Let me just ask one final question on that, if I may, about the plans for Afghans who served alongside UK forces. Yeah. What's going to happen to them?
Well, we've said we're not going to let them down, and that's absolutely right.
What does that mean?
So what that means is that there's a UK Special Forces review that's happening right now, that each applicant is going to be looked at in detail, and those that are eligible are not going to be deported to Rwanda. That was a really important part of the debate yesterday that we saw, where the...
So none of them are going to be sent to Rwanda in the interim?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And none of those who are eligible once the review has been conducted. And that review will take its time. But you're absolutely right. Once that review has happened, those who have served alongside, we will do the right thing, as I've said at the dispatch box, and those who have served alongside us will not be sent to Rwanda.
I'm reading in the paper this morning that Sir Mark Rowley has praised the officer who clashed with Gideon Falter during the pro-Palestinian march at the weekend. Is that something that you find acceptable?
Well, I think the police have had a really tough job when they have been policing the marches that have been going on. I think what we saw was unacceptable. And I think
what was unacceptable?
I think the way that the individual Gideon was dealt with was unacceptable.
In what way?
The language that was used, Kay, and I think anyone who's seen the clip would probably agree.
Have you seen the full 13 minutes?
I have.
And?
I have. And I think that does put it into context, and that's why I started my remarks by saying that the police do a really difficult job. But I don't think anyone of faith, whether you're Jewish, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Christian, should be prevented from going about your day-to-day lives and your daily lives.
Do you think that's what was happening?
Well, that was in part what was happening. And I think...
What do you think would have happened? Let me just ask you this, Minister, if I may. What would have happened, do you think, if he had been allowed to walk straight through the middle of that march? And there's also video available seeing him walking 180 degrees straight into the march.
Well, as I say...
What do you think would have happened?
The answer is I don't know. But I think the long clip that you referred to does put it into context. And that's why I started my remarks by saying that the police do a very difficult job. But my very strong belief is if you are somebody who is Jewish, if you're somebody who is a Christian, if you're somebody who is a Muslim, you should be allowed to go about your day-to-day life.
Walking through the middle of a march?
Well, the police...
Would you do that?
The police officer apologised. Well, I have done, because I've had to do that. But a police officer...
With an opposing view?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me an example.
An example was on a Saturday in London when there was a similar march, and I had to get to Downing Street. That's an example. I had to get down Whitehall, and it wasn't easy at all. But the police officer has rightly apologised for that. But I think the full context, as rightly you put before your viewers, it does show the difficult job that our police do when they're policing their streets, and I think we should thank the police for what they're doing.
What should happen if Gideon Slater decides again next week, Gideon Falter, forgive me, decides again next week that on Saturday, as he's said, he's going to take another stroll through central London in the proximity of a pro-Palestinian march? He should be perfectly entitled to do that.
I think people should be entitled to walk around London and to get on with their day-to-day lives. I think the police are entitled to get on and to do their job to the best of their abilities. And I think what we're seeing at the moment is we're seeing protesters, protesters and the police trying to do a difficult job.
So you wouldn't want the police to stop him if he does that again on Saturday?
I would want people to be able to walk about London.
I'm asking you specifics. If he does it again on Saturday, which he says he's going to do, you don't want to see, as a Home Office Minister, you don't want to see the police stop him?
I don't want to see people stopped from going about their day-to-day lives in London. No, I don't.
OK. Quick thought on the football before you go?
Thank you so much for asking. Any football that you had in mind?
Where were you last
Wimbledon Town. I was on Saturday in Wimbledon Town. There were lots of goals. It was 1-1. But we're going to win the league on Tuesday, tonight. We might win the league. So ever since you asked me that question, they've been going from strength to strength. I've been trying to claim some credit, but I'm told by the general manager. I've been told by the general manager it's nothing to do with me, and it's all to do with the team. and that it's all down to them. But good luck to them tonight.
Who's the star striker?
Oh, I couldn't tell you that. Jez played well. Jez played well on Saturday, I'm told. I think, Jez.
Did you see you were a star on Have I Got News for You?
It was shown to me, Kay, thank you. People did giggle and laugh and say, but there it is.
Who's laughing now if they win the league, eh?
Well, if they win the league tonight, we'll all be laughing. I hope you watch tonight.
Absolutely. Are you going?
Are you promised to watch?
Yes, are you promising to go?
No, I'm not, because I'm going to be in London, sadly. But if you can get me a slip from the Whips office, I might.
OK, we'll have a word. It's good to see you, as
Thanks so
always.
much.